Good morning and welcome to News at 10 on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. Now ahead of Parliament's winter session that is beginning, the government has called for an all-party meeting today. That is the big focus. In the top international story, we'll get you all the latest on Russian jet which was downed by Turkey near the Syrian border on Tuesday. But let us begin with the headlines. Government calls all-party meet ahead of winter session of Parliament beginning tomorrow. Opposition parties closing ranks to target centre over issues from intolerance to rising prices. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley asks Congress to reconsider suggestions to the GST bill. Congress says concerns raised by party is bona fide. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to meet US President Barack Obama on sidelines of a climate summit in Paris. White House says its aim is to forge global agreement on climate change. Russian President Vladimir Putin strongly condemns downing of Russian jet on Turkey-Syria border, calls it a stab on the back. NATO holds extraordinary meeting, backs Turkey. UN calls for de-escalation. And 30 days state of emergency announced in Tunisia following bombing of a bus packed with presidential guards in capital Tunis. For the top story, it will be a day of a flurry of meetings as the winter session of Parliament is set to begin tomorrow, that is on 26th of November. Well, Parliamentary Affairs Minister M. Venkaiah Naidu will convene a meeting of leaders of various political parties in both the Houses of Parliament in a short while from now, that is at 11 a.m. The meetings will be significant amidst the anticipation that the session could be stormy as the opposition is planning to corner the government on various issues. The BJP Parliamentary Party Executive meeting will take place at the Prime Minister's residence, and the NDA constituents will also be meeting at 7 RCR. Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan will also meet leaders of parties in Lok Sabha in the evening today. Meanwhile, opposition parties have closed ranks to target the government on a range of issues from intolerance to rising prices. Now, parties including the Congress, the JDU and the left have already submitted their notices for adjournment motions demanding a debate on the issue of intolerance and passage of a resolution condemning such incidents. During the nearly month-long session, around 30 bills, including the GST and real estate regulation bills, are slated to be taken up for consideration and passing.
Parliament, and we'll be taking all the parties into confidence, take their suggestions also if any, and the government always said we are willing to walk an extra mile to accommodate the views of the opposition. But the political parties must all work together in strengthening democracy, in strengthening the Parliament by allowing the Parliament to discuss, debate and decide.
Meanwhile, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley says that the government is ready to discuss with the Congress changes in the GST bill. He, however, said that the party should reconsider its suggestions, saying that some of them can damage the system much more than it can benefit. Now, Jaitley, who needs Parliament approval for the Goods and Services Tax Bill in the winter session beginning Thursday to roll out the new indirect tax regime from planned 1st of April, said that he is willing to discuss with the Congress as some of its suggestions were not in the larger interest of the GST structure. Jaitley said that those stalling reforms should realize that space for obsolete thinking is now shrinking and those who support reforms is much bigger than those who obstruct.
I think they'll probably have to revisit some of these suggestions. I have no difficulty in discussing with them. But the suggestions must never lead to a GST with a flawed architecture. Because a GST with a flawed architecture can actually damage the system much more than it can benefit.
अभी तक कोई इनके पास कोई स्पष्ट तस्वीर नहीं है, सही तस्वीर कि कितना होगा भारत का जीएसटी, सेंट्रल जीएसटी है, स्टेट जीएसटी है, वो कितना बनेगा कुल मिलाकर, इस पे अभी कोई स्पष्टीकरण सरकार के पास नहीं है. काफी काम बाकी है इनको करने को.
And with just a day to go for the winter session of Parliament, the opposition is busy fine-tuning its strategy. The main opposition party, the Congress, is all set to take on the NDA government on several issues, including intolerance. Congress also seems to be in no mood to give in to the GST bill, a key reform bill which the government wants cleared in this session.
Having tasted victory recently in Bihar, the opposition parties seem to be on a firm footing for the winter session of Parliament beginning Thursday. The main opposition party, the Congress, is all set to corner the NDA government on a number of issues, the most important being the debate on intolerance.
हंगामा करने के हमारा कोई इरादा नहीं है। हंगामा हम नहीं भी चाहते। हम ये चाहते हैं कि पार्लियामेंट स्मूथ चले, ठीक ढंग से चले, लेकिन पार्लियामेंट को ठीक ढंग से चलाने के लिए उसकी जिम्मेदारी ज्यादा से ज्यादा गवर्नमेंट की होती है।
Other items on the agenda include issues related to farmers and the rising prices of essential commodities. The party also seems to be in no mood to give in easily on the contentious GST bill, a key reform measure of the NDA government.
Thousands of farmers are committing suicide. There is agrarian distress. There is very sharp escalation of food commodity prices. The kitchen budgets are now beyond many of the common households. Is the Parliament supposed only to discuss what the Prime Minister and his government want, just one bill?
Meanwhile, the government has called an all-party meeting on Wednesday in a bid to bring everyone on board for the smooth conduct of the House. The monsoon session of Parliament this year was a near washout due to the standoff between the opposition and Treasury benches on several issues. Vishal Daya's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, in other news, the tomato prices have gone up 50% in the national capital region in the last 1 month. With the retail prices hovering near 70 rupees a kilo, the government has been forced to clarify that the supply disruptions were triggered by heavy rains in South India.
Onions, pulses and now tomatoes. Items in the middle-class food basket becoming costlier since July-August. Tomato prices alone have shot up over 50% since October.
I think 200 rupees for lentil and 60 rupees for tomato is too high a price to be paid by a common man, and some action should be taken on this front, and supply line needs to be improved.
The tomato price rise is especially worrisome as output hasn't fallen. Wholesale prices crashed by 2 to 4 rupees a kilo in Maharashtra market in July, but within months the situation changed. At the Azadpur Mandi in Delhi, wholesale prices reached 45 to 50 rupee a kilo by November. This prompted Cabinet Secretary P.K. Sinha to direct officials to take remedial steps. But barely a week later, tomato prices touched 70 rupee a kilo in some places in Delhi on Monday. Economists feel that prices could correct by mid-December when new crops enter the market.
If you look at the food prices, particularly the CPI index, my guess is that it will not go out of our control. So that we still have a CPI inflation of less than 6% by the end of January.
Will it be within the glide path of RBI or not? My own view is that broadly, even if the base effect corrects it, probably it will be within the range of RBI.
But even a CPI in the range of 5-6% is hardly any relief at a time when prices of pulses like arhar or tur dal have touched 180 rupees a kilo. While urad prices have come down moderately by 3 to 4 rupees a kilo, the government claims its action against hoarders have brought 87,000 tons of pulses into the retail market in Maharashtra alone. It has also asked the Food Corporation of India and NAFED to prepare buffer stocks of pulses to deal with price shocks. Krishnan Tripaঠি's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrapped up his two-nation tour of Singapore and Malaysia. During his last day in Singapore, Modi addressed the Indian diaspora. He also spoke about the climate change concerns ahead of Paris Climate Summit during his address.
Addressing the Indian diaspora before winding up his two-day visit to Singapore, Prime Minister Narendra Modi credited Indians living abroad for changing the country's image worldwide. Addressing around 15,000 Indians, Prime Minister Modi said, "Today the world looks towards India with great faith." Modi also invoked the legacy of the late Lee Kuan Yew, known as the founding father of Singapore, saying India needs to learn from Singapore. He further emphasized on the need to learn about cleanliness from Singapore. Asserting that it was time to change habits, the Prime Minister said Indians have decided that they want a clean country now.
जिस धरती पर पहुंचे जान पहचान थी या नहीं थी, हालात अनुकूल थे या प्रतिकूल थे, आपने उस धरती को अपना बना लिया। उस देश के लोगों के साथ आप ऐसे मिल गए जैसे दूध में शक्कर मिल जाए।
Talking about opening up of various sectors for foreign investment, the Prime Minister said he does not see FDI only as foreign direct investment but also as first develop India. He said India needs to learn a lot from how Singapore was developed in 50 years, transforming a small village of fishermen into one of the most developed nations.
न हिंदुस्तान आंख झुका करके बात करता है, न कभी हिंदुस्तान किसी को आंख दिखाने की कोशिश करता है, लेकिन हिंदुस्तान आत्मविश्वास से भरा हुआ है, वो आंख मिला करके बात करता है। अब विश्व ये नहीं सोचता है कि भारत एक बहुत बड़ा बाजार है, हम अपना माल बेचने के लिए पहुंच जाएंगे। वो सोच बदल चुकी है। अब उसको लगता है मौका मिल जाए तो हिंदुस्तान के साथ पार्टनरशिप कर ले।
Ahead of the climate summit in Paris, the Prime Minister also said that India will do whatever possible to protect the environment.
हम ऊर्जा तो चाहते हैं, लेकिन दुनिया के लिए संकट भी पैदा करना नहीं चाहते। भारत ने सपना देखा है 2030 तक 40% बिजली वे नॉन फोसिल माध्यम से होगी, कोयले के माध्यम से नहीं होगी। मतलब ये जो छोटे छोटे टापू देश है ना, जिनको डर लग रहा है कि समंदर का अगर स्तर बढ़ गया तो डूब जाएंगे, हम आपको डूबने नहीं देंगे। हर किसी को गले लगा।
The Prime Minister also said India can no more just rely on the stories of valor of the past. He said there is a need to take inspiration from past achievements and make efforts to raise the stature of the country through development. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, in related news, the US President Barack Obama will meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of the Paris summit next week as part of an effort to forge a strong global agreement on climate change. And this has been announced by the White House. Obama would meet Modi on 30th of November, which is the opening day of the Paris Climate Change Conference. The US President will also meet Chinese President Xi Jinping at the start of the two-week climate summit. Obama's meeting with Modi will be their 7th since 2014. Modi and Obama have had talks in this regard during the US President's trip to India, also at the bilateral meeting in New York at the UN General Assembly, and on the margins of the recent summits that they both have attended. And in Breakfast News, we'll take a very short break. We'll be back with more news. Stay tuned.
Some 44 existing laws are there, which you are subsuming them into about 4 to 5 categories. Was this a kind of a unilateral decision?
We have taken many initiatives on the recommendations of the trade unions.
Are the labour reforms, if at all they are pushed, can they really prevent the casualization of workers?
The labour is under the concurrent list. Appropriate governments are state governments.
Child labour amendment bill. There are accusations that the government is trying to dilute this law.
In this amendment, we are adding a new definition.
Watch to the point with Union Labour Minister Bandaru Dattatreya only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. Now, aiming to help people with intellectual and development disabilities, the government on Tuesday launched 10 new schemes. Emphasizing the need to give equal rights to people with disabilities, the Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment, Thawar Chand Gehlot, announced that they propose to increase the categories of disability from 7 to 19. And these proposals will be reflected in the disability bill that is likely to come up in the winter session of Parliament.
The Ministry of Social Justice on Tuesday launched 2 new schemes and 8 revised schemes for people with disabilities. For the first time, the ministry is also seeking a higher budgetary allocation for the National Trust that implements the schemes. Over the last 15 years, the trust spent 64.75 crore rupees on its initiatives. Under the fresh proposals, the spending will be 90 crore rupees over the next 2 years, a tenfold increase.
We've revised the financial parameters, so obviously we will be looking at much higher uptakes of funds from the National Trust by our stakeholders and partner NGOs. We have decided to give them about 80 crores of rupees and over 2 years. So over the next year, I think it will be about 33 crores and the remainder the next year.
The 8 revised schemes include Disha, Vikas, Samarth, Gharonda, Nirmaya, Sahyogi, Gyan Prabha, Prerna, Sambhav, Barte Kadam. A statutory organization, the National Trust looks into 4 disabilities: autism, cerebral palsy, mental retardation and multiple disabilities.
The new schemes have been approved by the board of the National Trust and they have now been launched. Schemes will essentially provide insurance for persons with disabilities. They will provide halfway homes for persons with disabilities. They will give them self-employment, or they would give them training for getting them employable skills, as well as they would look into the other issues which are faced by them in education also.
Linking itself with the Digital India program, the ministry also launched a first-of-its-kind disabled-friendly website, www.thenationaltrust.gov.in. The website will not just help persons with disabilities but even NGOs. The entire process of implementing the new schemes, right from submitting the applications to disbursing funds, will be done online. A payment gateway and scheme management system are also part of the scheme. This is Anshu J. Singh's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's take a look at what all events are lined up for the day in the day ahead. Rahul Gandhi will be in Bangalore today to interact with students in the Silicon City over building vibrant India. He will interact with about 1,500 students at Mount Carmel College and will deliver a speech on the role of the youth for a vibrant India. The Congress Vice President is relaunching his project to connect with the youth, and this will start a series of visits that he will make to colleges and universities across the country. BJP National President Amit Shah will address party workers in Dibrugarh district of Assam today. The party has pinned its hope on the state's assembly elections next year after debacle in the Bihar polls. BJP has been organizing public mobilization campaigns in the 14 Lok Sabha constituencies across the state during the month. For the first time in Assam politics, remember, BJP had won as many as 7 seats in general elections held last year. An anti-terrorism court in Islamabad will resume its hearing in the trial of 7 Mumbai terror attack accused, including mastermind Zakir Rahman Lakhvi. The court had adjourned the hearing on 18th of November as 2 witnesses summoned did not turn up. Several LET operatives, including Lakhvi, were arrested in 2009 for their alleged role in the attacks that left 166 people dead and over 300 injured. Pope Francis landed in Kenyan capital Nairobi for his maiden trip to Africa. During his visit, Pope Francis will celebrate Mass with Kenyans and hold various meetings with President Kenyatta, religious leaders and the youth. He will also spend time with the less fortunate members of the society. The Pope will be in Kenya for 3 days before departing to Uganda and thereafter the Central African Republic. It is the 46th birth anniversary of the first Sikh Guru, Guru Nanak today. Sikhs from across the world are offering prayers at Gurudwaras to celebrate the auspicious day. The festivities started this morning with the Prabhat Feris, processions that start from the Gurudwaras, and devotees then go to the nearby localities and chant hymns. And on to the top international story. While Russian President Vladimir Putin has strongly condemning the downing of a Russian jet on the Turkey-Syria border on Tuesday, he called it a stab in the back. Now, Turkey justified its action, alleging that Russia had violated the Turkish airspace. Now, following war efforts, NATO held an extraordinary meeting to discuss the incident, after which they confirmed that the Russian warplane did fly into the Turkish airspace. Meanwhile, a fresh report suggests that a Russian Marine was also killed during the helicopter mission to rescue the crew of the downed jet.
Russian President Vladimir Putin warned of serious consequences after Turkey shot down a Russian Su-24 jet warplane near the Syrian border, alleging a violation of Turkish airspace by Moscow. One of the two crew members was killed. Fate of the other is still unclear. Putin called it a stab in the back. Turkey retaliated, defending its right to protect borders.
Это при том, что мы с американскими партнерами подписали соглашение о предупреждении инцидентов в воздухе. А Турция, как известно, в ряду тех, кто объявила о том, что они якобы воюют с терроризмом в составе американской коалиции. Если у них, у ИГИЛ, такие деньги, а счет idет.
Biz hiçbir şekilde herhangi bir ülkenin toprağında gözü olan bir şeyden gelmiyoruz, yaklaşımı benimsemiyoruz. Ama herkesin de bilmesi lazım ki.
Following a war of words, the NATO held an emergency meet at Turkey's request to discuss the incident. Backing Turkey, NATO called for a dialogue between Russia and Turkey. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon also urged for de-escalation of the crisis.
I have previously expressed my concerns about the implications of the military actions of the Russian Federation close to NATO borders. This highlights the importance of having and respecting arrangements to avoid such incidents in the future. We stand in solidarity with Turkey.
The US-led coalition strikes continue in Syria and Iraq despite the incident. This is not the first time that Turkey has alleged Russia of its airspace violations. Tensions in skies over Syria mounted since September, when Russia stepped up its fight against rebels supporting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The US-led coalition has also been using the same airspace in its fight against the IS. Since the Paris attacks, there has been hints of a rapprochement between Russia and the West, both uniting against IS. But the latest incident posed a huge challenge. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, a hostage situation in the northern French town of Roubaix caused a big scare on Tuesday. However, it has been confirmed now that the incident was not related to the Paris attacks earlier this month and has ended with the hostages now safe. Well, up to 3 armed men took a woman and her 2 children, including a 1-year-old baby, hostage in the town near the border with Belgium. Gunfire exchange took place and one of the gunmen was killed during the police operation, while the hunt is on for the other suspects who are on the run. The incident came at a tense time with France on high alert following the terrorist shootings and bombings in Paris, and as the police in both France and Belgium hunt for the terror suspects linked to the attacks that left 130 people dead. Officials insisted that the hostage situation that lasted several hours was not linked to terrorism but was related to an attempted robbery. Well, just over a week after the horrific Paris attacks, French President François Hollande met his US counterpart Barack Obama in the White House on Tuesday. Both the leaders agreed to stand united in the fight against the Islamic State. However, Hollande ruled out any troops on the ground in Syria. Hollande has stepped up his efforts to garner support for a more coordinated international campaign to destroy Islamic State. He is expected to visit Russia on Thursday.
This barbaric terrorist group, ISIL or Daesh, and its murderous ideology pose a serious threat to all of us. It cannot be tolerated, it must be destroyed, and we must do it together. This is the unity of purpose that brings us here today.
Prise des points clés occupés par Daesh en Syrie. Il est également urgent de fermer la frontière entre la Syrie et la Turquie pour qu'aucun terroriste ne vienne, notamment en Europe.
And some more international stories now in World Wrap. As the investigation over the Paris attacks continue, the French prosecutors have said that the suspected ringleader Abdelhamid Abaoud was near the Bataclan theatre during the siege. The mobile phone data also showed about the return to the targeted cafes and restaurants. Now, they have also gathered evidence that he was planning an attack on Paris's La Défense business district. Meanwhile, an arrest warrant has been issued in Belgium for a man named Mohammed Abrini in connection with the Paris attacks. At least 12 people were killed when a bomb exploded in a bus packed with presidential guards in Tunisian capital Tunis. The bus blew up when the guards were boarding the bus to be taken to the presidential palace on the outskirts of the city. The Tunisian president has declared a state of emergency for 30 days. A curfew is also in place. Initial reports suggest that it could be a suicide bomb attack. Investigation is underway. The US released a dashboard camera video which shows a white police officer fatally shooting a black teenager 16 times in Chicago in 2014. The police officer has been charged with a first-degree murder. Police also said that black teenager refused to drop a knife. Chicago mayor has appealed for calm. Meanwhile, the Minneapolis anti-racism protests were marred by violence when 3 white men opened fire at a rally, injuring 5 people. Now to cricket now. In India have won the toss and elected to bat first in the 3rd test against South Africa at Nagpur. Now India is playing with 3 spinners with the leg spinner Amit Mishra brought back in the team. Batsman Rohit Sharma has also been included in the team. South Africa is without their premier pace bowler Dale Steyn as he has not fully recovered from a groin injury. Well, with the pitch expected to turn from day 1, spinners will once again play an important role in the outcome of the match. Remember, India is leading the 4-match series 1-0 after winning the first test in Mohali. Well, as far as the second test is concerned in Bangalore, well, that ended in a draw after rain washed out the last 4 days of the match.
It will take its time getting there, but will eventually... Because his line and length is so good, very, very different.
That's all in this edition of news, but news and updates continue on Rajya Sabha TV. Keep watching.